Hello, Facebook. Hello, our community. I have a very special treat for you guys today. Not only did you guys get a chance to see Nick Baldwin earlier today talking about modern technology, but today in studio we have Ricardo Acevedo talking about branding. And so we're going to interview Ricardo Acevedo in just a moment. What's going to happen is Amy's going to be sharing this out. Normally we have another live class next week, but this is a very special appearance, special guest, awesome human being, wealth of knowledge. So you guys are getting an opportunity to tune in live right now. If you have any questions, feel free to post them, whether that is in the Zoom chat or on Facebook or later on YouTube in the comments, and we'll make sure that those get answered for you. Right now, I'm going to bring Ricardo Acevedo onto our community real estate school. My friend, welcome.
Thank you.
I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so let me go ahead and bring down this banner right here. Ricardo, you are quite the titan, my brother. And you're also extraordinarily humble. So when I called and I started saying all these different things, hey, you're the best and all this different stuff, I really want you to come and be a part of this real estate school. You're so calm about it. And you're like, hey, I really appreciate that. You know, it was very nice of you. But I appreciate how understated you are, because I'm always all over the place, right? And you don't have to nod your head there. But for those of you that are maybe not watching in Southern California and don't see the billboard every 15 yards, or may not know who Ricardo Acevedo is, would you mind introducing everybody and to yourself and letting everybody know who you are?
Absolutely. My name is Ricardo Acevedo. I belong to the Acevedo team, a team that was created about 16 years back ago. I work for Century 21, and we've been in the industry for about 16 years.
Awesome. And then in those 16 years, I know that you've had moderate success. You've done a little bit of business.
Yes.
And I know that you don't like to necessarily say these kind of numbers out there out loud, but can you give everybody an idea as to how much business you have done?
It's been approximately over 3,700 families that we've assisted over the course of the last 16 years.
I really like the way that you said that.
On our database.
And I love that you said that it's families that we have served.
Correct.
Right? Instead of homes we've sold,
Right.
transactions closed. And so if you're watching at home right now and that's something that you're picking up on, there's a reason why I'm interviewing this man right here. And it's because he says things like that. He has a different way of thinking about business. Can I ask you, did you get branded right at the beginning of your career, or is that something that you did a little bit later?
It was actually mainly since the beginning.
Okay.
First couple of checks that were cashed in, they were not spent. They were actually spent right back into the business. Not on personal stuff, but that was actually the ideal since the beginning. As soon as we start making in a couple of revenue for the company, it's going to be reinvested right back into the company so that we can start branding ourselves, expose ourselves, and people start recognizing our names and our faces and our firm, so that we're able to have better possibilities for people to recognize and therefore call for service.
Absolutely. At the beginning of my career, you know, of course, I started off with Tarbell, and most of my signs said Tarbell. Very little of it said David Serpa. And so when you're going out there and you're putting up signs, you're either putting up someone else's brand or you're putting up your brand. You're getting your family fed or you're feeding someone else's family. And I love the way that you've done your branding with you and your wife on there. Can you tell everybody a little bit about who your wife is and what she does in the business?
Sure. Sandra Acevedo is my wife. We've been married for about 19 years, going on 20. She basically at the beginning, was a producing agent just like myself. And as we started getting busier and busier, she became more like the internal operation manager, which means she was overseeing books, making sure that everybody was getting paid, the marketing was getting paid, advertising and budgets and everything that we were investing right back into the company. Somebody was keeping track of the books, making sure our people that was in staff, taking care of them on payments and making sure that all the finances were taken care of internally. And who else better to handle them than my wife?
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I know that you run a tight ship, and it's one of those things where, like, I have to have that other part of my brain.
Sure.
And we were talking a little bit about Myers-Briggs before we started. I said, you must be an ENTJ. And he said, I haven't taken that yet, but my wife is an ISFJ, and I am an ENTP, and so we are literally opposites of one another.
Right.
And so she is very much the person that can hold someone's hand, will walk somebody through a contract. I'm more of a rainmaker. I'm a chaos coordinator, as Gary Keller would say, and so it works out well for us.
Yeah.
What is the role that you play in the business?
Well, and when you were explaining that, that was us too. I was the guy out there just on the field, meeting families, executing obviously transactions with our customers, meetings, showing properties, listing properties, and doing everything that had to do with being out on the field, meeting customers, and obviously interaction with the customers. And Sandra was basically on the back end, handling everything. If it would have been that way, I could have not obviously grown the way we did.
Absolutely.
Because we needed each other to complement each other on our strengths. I was on the field. She was internally handling everything inside and making sure that everything else was handled while I was actually out there meeting customers and building our company, bringing ideas. I would bring in the ideas and vice versa. We would create, obviously, a portion of the ideas. She would do certain things of those, and I would handle the other stuff as well. So it was obviously, again, a combination of both that created an opportunity to grow our business to the way it is now.
And it's the two of you on the branding. Do you have a larger team, or is it
Yes.
okay? And then how many people are on your team?
As of right now, 7 agents.
Wow.
But we've always ran it very small. It's always been 2 to 3 agents. That's it. Just a very small, core tight operation. Lately, over the last probably year or so, I've hired a few more agents.
Sure.
We're scaling and we're growing. Right now, I have 7, but it's always been about 2 to 3 different agents with us, and they've been there with us for years already.
Yeah, so for a while there, I had 5 agents. I called them my OGs, and that's when we were all really tight knit. And then I think that the mistake that I made in my career was everybody kept telling me, "Oh, what's next? More," and it was too much for me. And when you look at a lot of the most successful teams, not just in our region but in the world specifically, because the world's bigger than the Temecula Valley, everybody, you find people that are running with small elite squads. Instead of giant company-size elements, and they're accomplishing significantly more than a lot of these huge brokerages, huge teams. The fact that you with 7 agents were consistently outselling me with 28 agents, and you were kicking my butt. And you kick my butt all the time with everything. I've got 5 kids, you've got 10 kids. Like I'm in the suburbs, you're in an estate. And so I look at you, but you're not competing with anybody. Like you're not looking at anybody else. It's like that guy, Michael Phelps in the swimming competition. And the guy's looking over like this, and Michael Phelps he's got his head down. And that's what I admire so much about you. You're like a boxer. So how do you keep your head down and pay attention to what you need to do when there's so much noise around you?
I think it's one of those things that I've always been very conscious about. I've always been the guy that I've always just focused on what I can control, right? I've never allowed the outside noise to really bother me or to really get to me. And that's why I kept my team very small for all those years, because I didn't want any distractions in my life.
Yeah.
I know the minute I was going to go out and hire 5 or 10 more people, it was going to distract me from my personal production on growing my company. So it's a decision I made early in my career. I said, I'm not going to grow big, because if I do, it's going to stop me from my main purpose of building what I want to build. Because now I'm going to have to become a manager. I'm going to start managing. I'm going to have to start teaching. I'm going to have to start doing this. I'm going to have to start doing that, which is it's going to end up distracting me from my main purpose.
Yes.
And one of those things that I'm really good at, man, I'm really focused, laser focused on my task in front. And I'm the type of guy, I try not to let anything get on my way of completing my task that I have in front of me. And I focus over the course of the years on just doing what I was supposed to do. Allow Sandra to do her portion. Allow my other 2 agents at the time to do their thing, and just continue to just build, obviously, what we were building without any distractions. And I've always, it's one of those things, one of those talents or things that I, God-given talents that He gave me. I've just been a very laser-focused guy, and I continue to do so till now on the areas that I'm working on.
Now, of course, I keep referencing your production, but you started somewhere, right?
Yes.
Everybody talks about success, and they see the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
They see all of the shine and all the glitz and the glamour, but they don't see you in the trenches.
Right.
And one of the things that's so fantastic is you've never left the trenches, eh? You're still in there. You've just redefined your role in it.
Right.
So what was your role in the beginning when you were starting? How did you see your role in your business as a new agent?
So when you invited me to come over, I was thinking about the topic that you requested that we were going to talk about. So it actually took me back to my beginnings, right?
Sure.
Did you have any money for marketing? Did you have any budget for marketing?
Yes.
How did you start spending money in marketing? Well, I didn't have money for marketing. My marketing was door knocking, meeting people, going out, and I was just one of those guys that wasn't afraid to put in the work to go out and meet people and do whatever it took to provide for my family.
Yeah.
I had 3 or 4 kids at the time, and my goal and my I'm not gonna say dream, but my motivation was providing for my wife, for my 4 kids, and the future to come. And my mentality was I need to create freedom for these people. They're everything for me. We have bigger plans as far as family, so that kept me really focused on what I needed to do in order for me to build our legacy as a family. But
sure.
But I started door knocking 7 days a week. 7 days
Yes.
a week. 7 days a week. I would go out and door knock, door knock, door knock, and door knock until I started. And it was with blank business cards. Okay, business cards that I handwritten my names on them, put my phone numbers. Company gave me generic business cards that I just wrote down my name, my phone number, and I just had drive and a purpose to go out and figure out a way to start building clients, meet people, start establishing relationship. And once I started meeting people, establishing relationship, then I went into affording actual business cards, to potentially now affording postcards, and then later to start investing back into true branding that started creating obviously awareness, a sign, a logo of a company that now these guys are now really putting a little bit more money into their business. But it was without any money. Basically, it was just earned marketing that we earned
sweat equity
through sweat equity, like we call it, and that's where we started.
That's so inspiring.
Yeah.
I love it. So you said you door knock 7 days a week. So when I talk to my young students, and now, so my first high school student became licensed the other day, and his dad, who's a high school teacher, became licensed. So that's James and Fred. So if you're watching, shout out to you. But James and Fred, James said to me, he goes, how much money could I expect to make in my first year? And I said, well, that's really going to be completely contingent on you.
Right.
And I was asked a similar question by a new agent up in Northern California today. How much money could I expect to make? And I told him that 100% depends on you. So let me ask you a couple of questions. Do you want to door knock? Well, I don't know. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with COVID-19 right now. Okay, I understand. Will you make cold calls? Oh, I don't know. I wouldn't want somebody calling me. Okay, no, I completely understand. Will you hold open houses? You're allowed to hold open houses now with COVID-19. Well, no, that's not really what I want to do. Okay, then you're probably not going to make any money at all.
Right.
And so like when I got out, I held open houses.
Right.
I made, I think, $32,000 in my second month. And it was, would you mind turning on the lights? And a majority of that was from just doing everything, but open houses was most of it.
Right.
And I got made fun of in my office. They said, oh, you're going to go out there for 6 hours at an open house? Are you going to bring a sleeping bag? And I said, you know what? If I get one more client in the extra 3 hours that I'm there, and that's worth $5,000 to me, why would I not want to stay there?
Sure.
So I love that you were out door knocking. Can you would you be willing to share with us a little bit about how because you went out door knocking with blank business cards.
Right.
Perfectionism leads to procrastination, which leads to paralysis.
Correct.
You just jump right in. And so when you knock on somebody's door with a blank business card, what do you say?
Well, I study my scripts, right?
Yeah.
Hey, my name is Ricardo Acevedo. We just listed a house down the street. Or at the beginning, I didn't even have no listings to knock on. I was just there dropping off my business card. Hey, my name is Ricardo Acevedo. Do you happen to know anybody who's looking to buy or sell real estate?
Yeah.
How about yourself? Are you looking to potentially move anytime soon?
Sure.
What about your neighbors? Have you heard anybody talking about selling their home? Is there anybody that you can let me know?
Yeah.
And then obviously you start building confidence. You start building momentum. And for me, it was. I took it as a game, David. I go back and start thinking about those moments. In the beginning, I was scared. Lots of fear, right?
Absolutely.
I didn't know how people was going to react. But as I kept going, I started having fun with it. I started challenging myself. I started playing games with myself so that I can keep myself engaged into the responsibility. But as I was going and I started building off of just initial calls, a couple of name exchanges, phone numbers exchanges, that kept me just more motivated to continue to go out and challenge myself how many phone numbers, how many people I was going to meet. And I think that everything has to do that I had the right attitude, the right right attitude towards what I was doing. And I think everything in life is all about attitude. Either I go out with the wrong attitude, or I go out with a good attitude despite of what I know possibly it's going to happen.
Sure.
But I'm still going to go. I'm going to approach it with the right attitude. And I know that eventually something is going to arise from what I'm doing, because I know that if I'm putting in the work, there's going to be progress eventually. So I started having some progress, building some confidence, building some momentum, and then next thing you know, started doing one transaction, two transactions, started adjusting my schedule, doing things a little bit different when it came down to my prospecting, because at the beginning it was all about prospecting,
That's right.
follow-up,
100%.
follow-up, prospecting, and then things started going in a different round where we started cashing in some checks, helping out some families, closing in on some deals, starting with our marketing plan, excited. Now we're going to be able to afford some postcards. Now we're going to send out some postcards. Now we're going to start doing, obviously, our door knocking with more, professional, quality of things that we're providing to the customers. So that's kind of where things started kind of picking up and getting some momentum built on our business.
You do what you can when you can, right? And so these people, everyone wants to have like a perfect business plan when they step out the door, or the perfect pitch. And if anyone had the perfect pitch, they'd be a multi-gazillionaire already, and they wouldn't have to worry about anything. And so I would encourage you, like what I did, I cut my pieces of paper in half. They gave me free black and white printing at my brokerage. Yeah. I printed 500 of them. I cut them in half, and I just go out.
Right.
So I wanted to go ahead and first tell everybody thank you for watching right now. This is our community real estate school. We're about 15, 16 minutes into our interview, which means that we have more time for questions if you have them. And I have plenty if you have none of them. If you're watching on Zoom, I appreciate you watching. If you're watching on YouTube, all of these courses are backlogged. All of our interviews are backlogged. I have, first, before I have a question, I wanted to say thank you. You said I was afraid. I was scared when I went out door knocking the first time. That takes a great deal of courage to admit that, right? You are, at this point, what anyone who knows anything about real estate would consider a titan, and myself included. I said, the king. You're the king. Like, you sell way more than anyone else that I know of. And the fact that you made time for me today, I appreciate that. But you said, I was scared. I was afraid to go knock on the door. There is not a moment that I have been in real estate that I have not been willing to do something that I'm afraid to do, to try something new, to try something different. And sometimes we get stuck in the non-money making activities and getting comfortable being uncomfortable in the wrong ways, just hanging out with a bunch of real estate agents. So can I ask you, in the beginning of a career, what are some things that people can do to get started that will start getting their brand and their face out there, so that they're not just spinning their wheels for the sake of spinning their wheels?
Okay, and that's one of the other things I was thinking of. How can I create value for the audience, right? If they're starting to create, in a sense, their marketing, their branding themselves. How I started, it was in my immediate community, which is what you're doing here.
Absolutely.
Okay? I was a very active member of our baseball community with my boys playing baseball.
Yeah.
So I started obviously allowing everyone to know in the baseball community that I was a real estate agent. I used to carry obviously my name badge everywhere I went. Name badge. My church community. Our school community.
Yes.
Our sphere, our friends, parents from our kids. So the way everything started unfolding is when we got licensed and we started selling, we started door knocking, we went immediately to our sphere, which is our direct area where we were living, because that was where I wanted to really establish a farm area. That's what I did. I established a farm area that eventually I dominated that sector by door knocking, marketing that specific location.
Yes.
And obviously marketing myself to everyone. I wasn't afraid to extend my hand to somebody at the gas station and say, hey, my name is Ricardo. By the way, here's my business card. I work for Century 21.
Why not?
If you ever need something, please give me a call. I wasn't afraid to look like a fool, right? Talking to people. I wasn't embarrassed. I was embarrassed at some points, but then later I wasn't, because it was a way of me exposing myself for people to know what I did for a living. And eventually, believe it or not, a lot of people that I handed out business cards in the gas stations, at the store, in locations that I didn't even remember, They would literally call me and say, hey, I met you at a gas station. I was pumping gas. You were pumping gas, and you were nice enough to come over, introduce yourself, and give me your business card. I'm looking to purchase. I'm looking to sell.
Absolutely.
So I was very, in a sense, I wasn't closed-minded to say, well, business could come from so many different directions. I was just very open-minded to say, hey, I'm going to share my information. I'm going to talk to people because that's what we're supposed to do. Is we got to go out and communicate, establish relationship, talk to people.
That's
right. Find people that needs your services, and I had time to do that. Right, I wasn't as busy as I am now. Where I had all the time in the world to go out and build and establish my name and meet people and find people that wanted to buy and sell real estate.
And there's so much sweat equity that you can invest in your business. Like in the beginning, I had nothing but time. So I was willing to try anything that anybody suggested that I give a shot to. So Trevor Bodie has a question on Facebook. I'm going to go ahead and add that to the broadcast. And it is humongous. Here we go. Trevor says, I have to say it's very encouraging to see someone who is so successful, that was humble enough to do something as simple as door knocking. Some people think they are above that or better than that, but really it seems that it's okay to start with the basics.
I've always been a very basic guy. I've always, and every time I forget about certain things where I feel I'm getting out of certain comfort, I always go back to the basics. I'm a very simple, basic guy, and anytime I feel out of zone, I go back to the fundamentals. I go back to the basics because I know that's my true foundation.
That's right. I tell people all the time, do the ordinary extraordinarily. And so like getting back into the basics, getting back into the trenches, you can't be beat by Zillow, you can't be beat by an app if you get in the trenches. And this morning we interviewed Nick Baldwin on the show, and he was saying that more people are using a real estate agent now than ever before.
Right.
With all of the tech and everything available, more people are using a real estate agent. And most of them are using the first real estate agent that contacts them, which I think is great data. Yeah, great information. Okay, so for those of you that are watching, feel free to ask a question if you have any, and I will ask them live to Ricardo here with us right now. I'm going to check the Zoom chat to see if anyone has asked any questions just yet, and we don't have any on the Zoom, so I'm going to continue to ask my questions. Sure. I'm going to continue to study. Oh, my mom has a question. So go ahead, Mom.
I want to thank you, first of all, for coming out and spoken very highly of you.
Thank you.
I feel very privileged that you're here, and are able to answer questions for me and so I'm just starting. I'm going to hopefully get my real estate license after pass all the tests and maybe go test the real estate license. So I'm trying to right now. And when you started out, you said you were going on. I was wondering, did you have a plan when you did the door knocking, or did you just go door to door every house?
Yeah, well, I picked the farm, and obviously
the question was, did you go door to door, or did you knock every single house when you went out door knocking?
I went door to door. So I knew where I was going to start, potentially where I was going to finish, but I chose a specific neighborhood that I wanted to become the #1 branded agent. That was my goal. I'm going to become the #1 guy in this neighborhood here until, I'm going to work it until I become the #1, because I saw some guys that were the #1 there for years. And my goal was, I'm going to door knock this neighborhood. I'm going to introduce to every homeowner, and I'm going to be in their faces as much as possible until they remember me and until I dominate this particular neighborhood. And I did it after probably 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, so if you can't measure it, you can't market it. Yes. Anthony Andres, if you can't measure it, you can't market it. And every king or every queen needs a kingdom, right? And so you have to become relevant somewhere to become relevant anywhere. And so I love that you started with the neighborhood, and you said, I'm going to become #1 in this neighborhood.
Right.
And then we'll branch out from there.
I think it's a great concept if you think about it. It's your sphere, is where you go to the stores, is where your kids go to school, is where you potentially go to church.
Yep.
Where your kids go to sports. Do you see what I'm saying? It's
Absolutely.
People that you're going to see them consistently over and over and over again. Then eventually they become obviously your clients. They trust you because they know you. You're a parent of the community.
That's
right. You
right.
start knowing you better. You start interacting with them better. Then you start building more trust with those people because they know who you are because you're within that community.
Yeah, and I love that. So like instead of being a real estate agent who is named X, Y, and Z, you're Ricardo,
Right.
and you happen to be a real estate agent. So like when you go out there in the world, you're coaching, you're involved in the schools.
Yeah.
I do the same thing. I love the Watchdog program. I love coaching my kids. And what happens, just like you said, people want to do business with people that they know, like, and trust.
Yeah.
And if you're in the community, they know, like, and trust you pretty naturally because they know where you live. Everybody knows where I live. Everybody knows where to find me. And so these people that are like, oh, I just got in the business. I live in Winchester, but I'm going to start door knocking in South Temecula because it's a higher price point.
Right.
I'm like, you're missing the mark entirely.
Yeah. I mean, nothing wrong with that, David.
Sure.
It could work for them, and it has worked for others.
Sure.
But I think obviously what has worked for me, that it has worked for so many other people that I know, it's that obviously that environment that I just explained.
Number one Remax agent in the world. Wasn't a guy who was selling mega real estate in LA. It was a guy from like Tuscaloosa, Alabama, who just absolutely owned his market.
Yeah.
So we got a couple more questions. Lito Hernandez says this is awesome. Appreciates that. Amy, I'm assuming this is you. What is the why that inspired you to decide to become a real estate agent? Oh, that's Christian. Okay. Why did you decide to become a real estate agent?
Through the experience of my first home that I purchased.
Yep.
I actually got so involved. Sandra and I got engaged at 19, almost 20 years old.
Sure.
And we purchased our first home right away within our first year of marriage. We actually got married and we had our house keys on our marriage date when we got married. I think on our honeymoon. But we were so involved in the process of purchasing our home with our real estate agent that we felt in love with the process. Like we were so excited about the process. We were so involved on the process, on finding the home, asking questions to our real estate agent. And it was just a process that created a lot of interest. And then along the process, we had some family that was actually doing real estate.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of saw the lifestyle that they had. They had the nicer cars. They had the nicer houses within the family.
Sure.
And we're like, hey, I think this is an area where I think that we might want to seek. We want to create our own businesses. We want to create financial freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Let's try this business out. And that's what led us to real estate.
I have a question for you, and then Christian posted that up from his personal page. There we go. I have a question for you. So I did have that huge mega team, you know that, and I decided to do exactly what you did, which is scale it back, brand my wife and I, and then if we add to that, we add to that. But that's where I'm going to anchor it. How do you turn it off when you get home? Because that's something that I have a problem with. You're working all the time. You know what I mean? And you're hustling and hustling and hustling. When you go home and you close that door, how do you close the phone? How do you turn off your mind?
Well, that didn't happen my first 10 years
Sure.
of my career. That started happening until like 11,
But I still have
12
2 years
into
to
the
4.
business. And again, it just depends on where you're at in your business.
Sure.
What's your goal? Where you want to get to?
Mm-hmm.
And then you start obviously readjusting your schedule. Priorities, come in place. Then you start obviously working around that. But, it took me 10, 11 years
Yeah.
to where I got to a point where, okay, I got to change the way I do personal and business.
Sure.
At the beginning, I worked 10 years in the business. The business worked, the opposite, I'm sorry. I worked around the business schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And right now I'm able to be blessed in a position where now business works around my personal schedule. But it takes time to build that, David. You can go from here, all of a sudden I talk to agents and all of a sudden they want to have everything so perfectly already lined up. And I'm like, it doesn't work that way. You got to pay your dues to get here. Then eventually you start catering around your priorities. And it took me 10, 11 years to start, obviously, in a sense. And that's 10, 11 years of putting in long, extensive,
for sure,
day-to-day work days, me and Sandra building this whole thing until we obviously got to a point we were blessed enough that we had built enough where now we were able to readjust our lifestyle, where now our business was working around our personal schedule.
All the time I get new agents that say something to me like, I want to get into real estate because I want to have more control over my schedule. And I'm like, oh, hold up. In the beginning, that's a great way to get fired.
Probably not the
It's
right
a great way to get fired.
Yeah.
Amy, you have a question.
It's actually right into my question, which is perfect. How did you structure your days? Now, I realize it took years of accountability and consistency, but how in the beginning did you structure your days? I know you mentioned door knocking 7 days a week, but maybe give us kind of a sneak peek into your schedule of how you structure
Well, I had a very regimented schedule, which I still do nowadays. It's different, obviously, because obviously my workflow is different. But it was 80% of the day new lead generation and 20% follow up and doing follow ups. Mainly, my whole day consisted of new lead generation. Just remember, business is about lead generation, right? And the more you start generating business, then you start adjusting the way you spend your day. Because think
That's
about
right.
it. First, you're lead generating because you're trying to create business. And then you obviously you set your time slots for lead follow-up. But as you start getting more customers, then your lead gen starts being less of a percentage of your day, your lead follow-up, and now your lead service. Because now you're servicing, you're following up, but you never stop lead generating. And that's one of the things that I think I did the best at it, because a lot of my colleagues that never grew to the level they should have, it's because they started slowing down on their lead gen for servicing, some follow-ups, and they forgot about the main core of the business, which was lead generation. And I was always a machine of lead generating despite of how my pipeline was looking like. I was always generating new business because I always wanted to make sure my pipeline was full, and I wasn't counting on the pipeline that was here full. I was counting on filling up my pipeline for the next month.
Yes.
So we just started building momentum and momentum and momentum, and next thing you know, I turn back and I'm looking, I'm thinking, man, we did some serious damage over the last 5 or 6 years, but it was just the momentum that we never slow down. And what I've seen in this industry, people start doing some deals, 3, 4 transactions, 5, and they have the tendency to slow down. They go out, they reward themselves a little bit too much, they take time off, and the next thing they know, they're back to square one. They're trying to push the ball again, and it takes them 3 to 4 months to build momentum again, and they get into that habit year after year after year, and they never seem to grow in this business, which if they would have just allow that momentum to carry over and carry over, next thing you know, you got this monster of an operation going on because you never slow down. So if I go back and I analyze my operation and the success we've had, it was because we were just always lead generating and we never slow down, because I was afraid that my pipeline was going to start getting dry, because I've seen the tendency of other agents in my surroundings that it just kept me so engaged to continue to build off of that momentum and that pipeline. And nowadays, you know, when I'm coaching agents that have had some success, but they can't really keep that going, is I find immediately the area where they actually struggle. It's not that they're not great at what they do. It's not that they don't know how to sell real estate. It's that they slow down, they start rewarding themselves too early in the game, and they never let themselves get to that next level where they realize, man, I could have been here, but I never got there because I started celebrating and rewarding myself too early in the game.
That was a great answer. That was a fantastic answer. We talk about that all the time, the 3 to 4 months. So I tell them, I say, if you take a week off, you might as well have taken 3 or 4 months off, because you are restarting the wheels spinning from over. So I tell everyone, success is kind of like you're pulling on a rope. And most people stop pulling the slack out of the rope the second that it's getting ready to go taut and start pulling in. And so what happens is most agents, when they start getting a little bit of success, they freak out. They don't want to lose it. But the truth is like, you know, instead of babysitting 2 deals, you know, and losing one, it's easier to lose 1 deal when you have 7 more.
Right.
You know, and when you get systems in place, you're not going to lose yourself to 7 deals. In fact, it's easier, believe it or not, to do more business. When I was doing 10 or 12 listings a month, my business was easier than when I'm doing 1 listing a month, because the systems are in place. Everybody has a job. Everyone knows their job.
And you're on a group.
100.
You're just on the zone, and you're so much productive, and you're so much confident, and your abilities when you're doing that level is just, you're doing deals easy, and it's energy. Your business is coming to you naturally as a creation of the energy and the right flow that you have going on.
That's right. That's right. It's energy in motion. So 80% lead gen, 20% follow-up for those of you looking at home. I agree with you 100%. Most agents stop with their lead gen the second their business picks up. But what you need is better systems to handle the business that's coming in. Have you read The One Thing by Gary Keller?
Yeah.
I assume that you had.
Yeah.
What is your one thing?
You got me.
I'll let you think about it a little
Sure.
bit. So we have Chad Power said right here. He said, "This is great info." Chad Power, shout out to you, my brother. Chad Power is a dialing machine. You're a door knocking machine.
Well, I
You like
became
dialing
a
too?
dialing machine too.
Let's hear it. Let's talk.
Well, no, like the same, David. It was I was afraid in the beginning,
Mhm.
like anything else. But as I started practicing and practicing and practicing and practicing, I was very strong at dialing the for sale by owners.
Okay.
That just expires, just listed, just sold, and the expires. And I became a great dialer over the phone.
Yeah.
I didn't have all those fancy, dialers that would dial so many numbers at the same
Mhm.
time. But I was really good with my fingers to dial fast and go to the next call and the next call and the next call. But it was a combination. When I started learning about obviously the call calling and all that, I started obviously combining both the door
Yeah.
knocking, the call calling, and then I would actually go out and door knock on the expires when everybody else was just dialing them. I was
Mhm.
actually knocking their door. They had gone 100 calls from the expires, but they were getting this guy in their door. So my success was much higher because
That's
they're
right.
like, hey, I got 100 calls from 100 different guys. You're the only one actually here at my doorstep. That means you probably care a little bit more, and you actually took the time to drive to my house.
That's right.
So I had a lot of success doing that as well.
I'll tell you. So I door knock expireds too and canceled in the beginning of my career, but I did it I think twice. I got a listing which I double ended, and then I never did it again.
Right.
And so the thing is like when you are a rainmaker and you're able to generate business at this sort of level, the other thing that people struggle with is when to pass it out, right? When to not babysit all of these deals yourself.
Right.
So can I ask you? And then Chad Powers says nos vamos en español, which so I don't speak the
What do
español.
you say? Nos vamos?
Now vamos en español. Now get going in Spanish.
Yeah.
And now let's go in Spanish. Chad Power does speak Spanish. Christian Tika speaks Spanish. You speak Spanish. My last name's Serpa. I don't speak a lick of Spanish. So when did you start adding to your team? Because of course, I always tell people when you're bursting at the seams, you add to the team.
Yeah, my first. So Sandra and I used to do all of our transactions together. She would help me out with the paperwork. She was like my TC. We were doing transactions together. At the beginning, she was meeting customers. We were both meeting customers. She was handling files. She was doing the TCing for me. When we got busier, obviously our first hire was a personal assistant TC.
Mhm.
The second hire was a personal assistant, was just assisting them
Yes.
with calls, dialing customers. Our third hire was one agent,
Mhm.
and then a second agent, then a marketing coordinator, and then another assistant. at some
You went
point.
admin heavy first.
Mhm.
Friggin' 2 high fives, bam, bam.
Yeah.
Why did you go admin heavy first instead of hiring a bunch of agents?
Because I needed to have assistants internally. If I go hire agents, I think it would have been the wrong move because now we have more workload, less help. Now we're pushing more paperwork versus pushing more transactions.
And then you have to be a manager,
Yeah.
right? And so when you have people in your office that are not productive, that are not doing anything, that are then they can become frustrated about not being productive, and you end up it almost becomes like this cancer, right? And so whenever you have, especially when you're adding to your team, not just your office, your team is almost an extension of your body in a lot of ways. If anyone has any questions on Zoom or on Facebook, please feel free to fire away. Did you have another question? Go for it. You have nothing to apologize for.
When you're going door to door and you get somebody that is a lead and say, yes, I want to buy it, what do you do? You turn around with a notepad?
I had a notepad, yes, a
And
notepad.
that's okay to do that, to write it on it?
Of course.
Okay.
Now, today we're more digital, right? People carry obviously digital notepads, computers, things of that nature that will go automatically into their database or their CRMs, whatever they're using for lead follow-up. What I used to do, just a notepad with a pen, write down their contact information, and I will follow up with them until they actually bought or sold for me. So
And it puts you in control too. People always say, "Oh, what CRM did you use when you were blowing out your team?" I was like, "A notepad,
yeah.
a notepad," and then I would put little notes like
Well,
I
that
left a
was- that was-
voicemail.
That was me until a few years later I started realizing, okay, this notepad stuff is not working. We
Sure.
have to get more digital. We have to start getting obviously softwares and systems that are going to be better for us.
Bursting. when
Yeah.
you're bursting. And so a lot of people overspend at the beginning of their career, and it prevents them from being able to stay in it long enough to get one started. You know what I mean?
Well, what I've seen, David, is people overthinks and they don't put action into things. They want everything so perfect. I had guys that were trying to create a flyer and they spent sometimes weeks trying to actually put a flyer together. And I'm like, dude, just go out and
Yeah.
put in the work.
Yep.
You know, you don't need to create a perfect document to go out. It's just go out and do it. But that has worked for me. I'm the guy, I don't know it. I'm going to go do it. It doesn't have to be perfect.
That's right.
Along the way, I make adjustments, I fix it, I make it better, but I got to take action and go out and actually do it. So that's what I tell you is you just got to take action. Forget about everything having to be perfect. Forget about your website having to be perfect. You know, we see that a lot. It has to have a website. I have to have this. I have to have this. I have to have that. We're thinking so much, but yet we're not doing anything to really go out and conduct business. And once we
Yes.
have it all, a lot of times we're so exhausted by building everything that we're not even doing anything about it,
Preach, brother.
right?
Yes.
I've seen that a lot. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things that I always tell my people, hey, just make it simple. I know you're perfect. You like to have things perfect, but you're going to perfection it along the way as you tweak it and you adjust it and you learn from the process that is going to teach you the right way to build it.
Absolutely. You know, the thing, if I pass you the ball, will you shoot it? If I pass you the ball, will you shoot it?
Right.
And so often you pass somebody the ball, and they're so terrified to take the shot
Yeah.
that they get in their own way. Joe McGowan, who's one of my first mentors, said to me, he said, you often know when somebody starts their real estate career because they disappear for 3 to 6 months, and then when they come back, they have the perfect website. But the thing is, if you're not in the trenches, the perfect website doesn't matter. Okay, I have a question in the Zoom chat, and this is from Mr. Aspen Martin, who is a high school teacher in Lake Elsinore, who is now newly licensed as of last week.
Got it.
He said, how much time does it take for an agent to do the actual process of deal with the client through the process of buy, sell a home? What daily outlay of time is spent with contracts and all that stuff after you've been in the business? So let me ask you the first question first. How much time does it take for an agent to do the actual process of dealing with clients throughout the process of buying and selling a home?
At the beginning, it's going to take you longer, like anything
Correct.
else, because you're learning the process. The beautiful part about it right now, it's going to be super fast.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to be so knowledgeable to go and meet a buyer and a buyer to be ready to make an offer because just of the nature of what the market is doing.
Correct.
But on a normal market, it's going to take you a couple of weeks before you actually break through and understand the customer when you start actually being in a process to start writing an offer on a home. And that's based on how much knowledge and how much preparation you have acquired in order for you to go out and actually meet a customer and know the questions you need to ask and know exactly what the whole process is going to be so you can educate the customer.
Yeah,
But right now, the way the market is,
Mhm.
anybody that is just brand new license, that's the beauty about it right now. You know, it's a great time for opportunity. There's so many people looking to purchase.
100%.
That any agent that has no experience, it's basically meeting customers and writing offers potentially the first day they're out.
Yeah.
I just hired new agents that are brand new licensee. They went through a very small period of training. Within a few weeks, they already have escrows opened up with
Yep.
basic information because of how the market is right now.
Yeah.
Is it going to be that way all the time? Obviously not. We go through adjustments and changes at our marketplace. But right now, that's kind of the tendency that we have.
And the truth is, the market outlook is pretty good right now.
Yeah.
You know, we just found that President Biden is going to be passing potentially this $15,000 first-time homebuyer
Right.
tax credit, and if that happens, you know, home buying power is only going to increase,
Right.
and the amount of buyers are only going to increase, which means prices tend to go up even more. And so,
So my answer to
Yes.
him right now, more than ever, you have access and ability to find buyers very easily and be able
Agreed.
to actually transact and help that family, you know, a lot quicker than obviously in any other marketplace.
I agree with you 100%. In this market right now specifically, there are so many opportunities because the average lazy real estate agent does not want to work with a bunch of buyers because they're lazy. Because they're lazy, which means that there's a bunch of opportunity out there. And I, of course, overgeneralize. That's my words. You don't have to say anything like that. But if you are out there and you're looking for opportunity, there's a lot of people say, oh, I don't really want to work with buyers right now. It's such a headache. Or there's so much work that goes into it. But the truth is you have to represent them well. You have to be willing to take some shots that you're going to miss, right? And at the end of the day, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the nose. So the best way to figure it out is get in the ring and start swinging.
My thing that I tell right now, some of the agents that are going through the learning process, I tell them if you actually have some success right now, which you will as long as you're committed to the process, you're willing to take some blows, and you're willing to take some punches and get knocked out along the way, but you get up and you keep going. Think about how great you're going to become when the market becomes sort of normal. You're going to be one of those agents that learn through these tough moments with buyers. Because if you get sellers, it's easy, right? Easy right now. But if you get buyers, easy to be able to get them to make an offer. The hard part is getting an offer accepted. But what I'm telling our guys is think about the fact that if you go through this process and you actually succeed through these moments, it's going to make you so much of a better agent when the market does make an adjustment and it starts getting normal again. You're going to be so much better of an agent because you've been able to navigate through these moments where you're able to successfully still have some success despite of all the challenges that the market itself is creating because of the amount of offers that you're competing with.
Yeah, and the truth is when inventory is low, what does that mean that there's a lot of? There's a lot of buyers. And so there's a lot of people that really go after listings in a time when inventory is low. And I commend them for it, but that's, of course, expensive. It takes money, it takes time and energy. But you can get so many buyers leads right now because of inventory being low. Here's the next question for you coming out of the high school course. What daily outlay of time is spent with contracts and all that stuff after you've been in the business?
After you've been in the business?
Yes.
Probably tops 2 hours a day, hour
Tops.
and a half.
For me, 0. I've spent about 0 hours on contracts in like about 7 or 8 years. Because at the end of the day, like I hate contracts.
Right.
And so some people love contracts. I would imagine your wife is probably great at contracts.
Yes.
My wife is fantastic at contracts. She went to college and she did the whole thing. I dropped out of college 3 times, junior college, not even real college. And yeah, different people enjoy different things. I don't like to spend my time on paperwork. That's not where my money is worth my time. So thank you so much, Ricardo and David, and very well explained. I'm going to pop back over to Facebook and see if we got any more questions. Here we go right here. Another question. That also depends on the client's motivation. If they move at the speed of this market, they need to have their pre-approval done ASAP. And of course, we can't even show homes right now. People don't have a pre-approval. So that's one of the things that I really enjoy.
Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I'm sorry I cannot show you the home. You actually have to have a pre-approval. It's a requirement. But let's get you pre-approved.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they won't let us go in through that door because they're requiring a P form plus a pre-approval letter.
Well, you know what? COVID-19 changed everything, right? And what it has happened is we don't get our time wasted by a bunch of people that are looky-loos. And so that's a great point. You're absolutely right, Chad. Amy.
So I love your boots on the ground way of being able to lead generate, but what are you doing right now as far as social media and being able to market online and stay in front of your clients or potential clients?
Well, we're using all those platforms now, right? Everything that we talked about, it was mainly years ago, right? More in the industrial side of it, the industrial time frame. Right now, we're more digital, but yeah, so we transitioned everything that we've done from the postcards to the billboards to the wrap vehicles to the mailers, all that stays in place. We just added other avenues, which is now Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and a lot of those things that we're doing in addition to the original foundation that we built, which is our main core business. We're just adding the new platforms so that we're able to have more exposure. And we're basically just marketing and paying ads and things of that nature through Facebook, through Instagram, through YouTube and some of those channels where we, in addition to what we do, is just another leg where we're adding more sources to be able to generate business and reconnect with a lot of our customers that we haven't talked to for years, despite of us trying, through our database, connect with them. There's customers that we haven't talked to them for years, and we've been able to reconnect with them through Facebook, through Instagram, and be able to actually reconnect and retouch bases and be able to rebond with them. Because majority of our customers, when we started with this podcast, we talked about, we're not selling homes, we're serving families.
That's right.
Our business, 95% of the customers that we have, these are long, life-term customers. We established that kind of relationship. We want to build customers that are going to be life-term customers, and we have a lot of that. So we try to make sure that we maximize, the opportunity to reconnect with them and to be in a position to make sure that we earn their future business. Now we're assisting their kids, and
Yes.
hopefully in the near future we're going to be assisting their kids and generations to come.
That's so
through
awesome.
the generational business that we're building.
And generational business.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that we've talked about in French Valley with, I've been recruiting all of my Serpas to come down here. I'm like, get down here from the Air Force, get down here from Northern California, get down here from Washington. And so, because at the end of the day, working with your family is such a beautiful thing. It's such a great opportunity. I've got 5 kids. You have 10 kids. Am I right?
Correct.
10 kids. How old is your oldest, if you don't mind me asking?
My daughter's 18.
18.
Yes.
Any interest in following dad into real estate?
Yeah. She's already in her university going to school, but she comes out and helps me in the office twice to 3 times a week.
Beautiful.
She's calling my past clients, my CRM. She's touching bases with them. She's basically bringing in old customers that have been there. We haven't touched bases with them for years, or we haven't talked to them. She's reconnecting, talking to my clients, just seeing if they need anything. But she's there 2 to 3 times a week, touching bases with some of our customers and just being there for any questions that they may have.
And once you get to a point to where you have a past book of business, it doesn't take, a huge book of business, 30, 40, 50 people, and you could start really scrubbing that and finding good deals there. And of course, you've got probably thousands of past transactions.
Well, I'm in the position, David, that the beautiful part about what we built is I can literally sit in my office and just go through my database, just call very casual calls to my past clients, and we can literally run a very successful business through the database that we have and the referral business and everything that we have from what we built, right?
Yes.
It took time. We went through everything that we went through to create this. Now we're able to basically see the fruit of our labor, that it pays off now. Now it's just a matter on how can we maximize it, how can we grow it even more, but it has that true foundation of what we built and all those customers that we touched and we know we're going to be able to assist them for years and potentially generations to come.
And I love the generational thing. So this person that came to one of my Easter events years ago, she said her daughter was 9 years old when she came and to the first one, and now she's 17. And I was like, how cool is that? And to have these kids that at one point I was throwing Easter eggs for them, and now they're at a point to where they're probably, they could potentially start buying real estate here. It is a generational opportunity. Lito Hernandez says the Acevedo team.
He's one of my agents.
I bet.
Lito is kicking butt. I'm very excited. He's a young guy, very coachable, having good success, and I'm very excited to be there for him and help him in his growth. He's part of my team.
You want to know what kind of a leader somebody is, ask the agents on their team. I used to tell that that's the hack. Like if you're thinking about, which team you want to join, where you want to go, call a couple agents on that team and just ask, right? And so, it used to be one of those things where, anyway, I won't get into all the used to's. So the Acevedo team, we've got just a couple more minutes here. I'm going to check one more time in the Zoom to see if we have any more questions for you. Here we do. Where do we learn about new information, like not being able to show a home without pre-approval and the such? I'll just go ahead and speak to that really quick so that way you don't have to speak to it. This sort of information develops as as COVID-19 has been developing, and information is changing constantly. And that's one of the benefits to having a broker that knows what's going on, that can update you regularly. I'm sure you have an awesome broker if you're not the broker. And so we get updated as well. Debbie Penny will do that for you, and we can talk about that more. But the industry's constantly changing.
That is correct. Every single day.
And last year, it's a totally different industry this year than it was last year. And what I love about the death cycle, the change, is it gives those of us with a little bit of that are a little bit more intuitive, that are willing to work for it. It sort of cleans out the industry a little bit.
Yeah, it sure does.
What question did you have? Last question.
So I know you have a huge book of business at this point in terms of past clients. What are you doing to stay in front of them to nurture that relationship so that you don't lose touch with the follow-ups? Are you utilizing a certain CRM?
Yes, we are. We do have a CRM where we are in drip campaigns with them. The beautiful part about it is that they see me on the freeways every time they go back home. Majority of my book of business is where all my billboards are at. So it's beautiful because when they're going back home or they're going to work, they're actually seeing me on the billboards. And a lot of times, people ask me, hey, do your billboards pay off? Of course they do, but it's not just because of the billboards. There were so many other things that got to that consumer that eventually the billboard was just another added avenue that eventually created that phone to ring or to stay connected with a lot of my past clients, that if they don't hear from me because we lack, let's say, on the touch that we should be doing the way we should be doing it, at least they're seeing me on the freeway and they're like, hey, there's Ricardo. Hey, remember he sold us our house 10 years ago. See, we keep seeing them every single day on the freeway, so it's just a reminder that whenever they're ready to do something, if we didn't do a good job with our CRM on following up with them, then at least I know they're still going to see me on the billboard and they're going to think and remember about us when they're ready to do something.
That's right, my brother. It's all about being top of mind and staying out there and in front of it a little bit. And so I really appreciate you making your way up here. I'm checking one more time to see if there's any more questions, make sure that nobody missed out. So for those of you that are just tuning in, we teach real estate school for high school students every day from 4 to 5 o'clock Monday through Friday, and for adults from 9 to 10 o'clock. This has been an absolute pleasure sitting here with you. We're going to be replaying this for the high school course, or for the adult course next week. Next week, we're going to be speaking with transaction coordinator Leslie Hill for the high school course. And then the week after that, we'll be with Coach Barino, and he'll be speaking with you. He'll be our special guest instructor. So at this point, any other questions from the office, from anybody? Okay, any other questions in the Zoom? Okay, I have one more question for you from the high school teacher, and then we'll wrap it. What are your thoughts on high school students job shadowing agent brokers through a day in the life of a real estate salesperson?
That would be beautiful. That we have an opportunity to have hands-on opportunity to see, the environment, and to be able to actually have the opportunity of being out on the field, doing things physically out there, and understanding the communication level that it takes to be out there, and the communication skills that all high school level students should be really focusing on, because I think we're losing a lot of that communication skills nowadays with technology.
Agreed, 100%. I think it's a huge opportunity. And of course, you guys are welcome to shadow me. We talked to James about that a little bit earlier. Brother, that was an Ivy League education earned from door knocking and whatnot. And you got into real estate at 19 years old?
No, I'm
20?
25.
25 years old. Okay, 25 years old, a young guy. And you've built a heck of a thing for you and your family for generations to come. I appreciate you making the time for me today.
Well, thank you.
How can people get a hold of you?
It's 951-903-4430, or you guys could go on Instagram and find me at theacevedoteam.com, or you could go to Facebook, Ricardo Acevedo. You can find me in any of those platforms.
Fantastic. I appreciate that. Feel free to reach out directly to Ricardo Acevedo. There's lots of big things coming from the Acevedo team all over the Inland Empire. Such a big name, such a great personality. I appreciate you, my brother.
Thank you.
Thank you for making the time. Feel free to keep watching us on YouTube. We've got all these classes uploaded daily, Monday through Friday. Everybody have a great day.